Hi everyone, just as this is the last chatting shit this month, just a quick reminder that any bloopers, outtakes, etc. Will be on the Patreon channel this month. Again, that's not money I keep; it's money I will be donating to the charity I work for. And there's more information about that in the description. I'll probably do that at the end of the month. Put the bloopers video up because there'll be more videos that I'll do throughout the month, I guess. So yeah, it'll contain bloopers from all that as well. So if you enjoyed the last one and want to check it out, please do so.
Okay, episode 4 of Chatting Shit about the Vortex Cup. Joined by Aerobubble, Bumeggs, and a new face, Jan Solo. How is everyone?
Hi, good, thank you.
Yeah, good.
Thanks for having us back again.
No, of course. Yeah, always good to get as many people on as I can, really. Jan, on his first time, is going first tonight, which I'm sure he's chuffed about. But yeah, what have you got for us?
Happy to be here. What can I say? Getting involved. So yeah, I find myself a bit surprised picking this one, actually, after some of the conversations I've had with people about my distaste of long, fast moves. But I've decided to go with Pokédex entry number 663, the Scorching Pokemon Talonflame. Was my pick for this evening. Yeah, mostly because, well, I think a lot of people who've played with Talonflame have liked it. I kind of like it's kind of fun. Flame Charge Brave Bird is a pretty good combination, really. Like, I mean, build up to a Brave Bird, and even if you bait with a Flame Charge and it doesn't go through or whatever, like you're getting that boost, and the attack stats pretty good on it. So, you know, it doesn't feel like a waste. But Fire Spin's rubbish, and now we're going to get a nice new toy on Saturday, an Incinerate, which I think just does massive things for it, really, just generally speaking. Yeah, Incinerate is obviously going to be a bit of a clunk type move if you've not used it before. It takes a bit of getting used to, being 5 turns, but I kind of like it as it's being the only 5-turn fast move, in that it can be so infuriating for your opponent if they don't deny correctly, and that 5 turns just feels so much worse than a 4-turn move. And it's all like 20 energy that you get off of it. It's just ridiculous. So it's like, so there's kind of like tilt aspect as well, which I kind of love, because I'm feeling a bit evil. So yeah, it can feel a bit like I say, it's longer than Confusion and like Volt Switch and stuff like that. So it can feel a bit awkward to use, but once you get used to it, that it can be so devastating if you manage to sneak one through, and just sneaking one through at any point can flip quite a lot of matchups which you'd think you'd actually lose as well. Of course, it's not completely consistent in obviously sneaking moves through and stuff like that, and it's going to depend on where you put Talonflame, but yeah, but there's like, again, the Sims, when you look at them, there's some matches which you think, oh, that seems like quite a significant loss, but if you do manage to sneak a move in somewhere, then actually you can flip it quite nicely, by the looks of things. So yeah, just as a kind of the opening salvo, it kind of does the things that you want it to do. A lot of it, I mean, you're beating all the grasses, you're beating Frostlass, anything that's kind of like weak to fire, just hates to see it. So, you know, other stuff like that crops up like in ones or two. Oh god, looking at my different pages. I mean, it has a pretty decent matchup against Primate, which is quite centralizing, obviously. Got some other, what else have we got here? Meganium, which I think might actually see some play later, and I think it's quite a good meta for Meganium personally, but that's like another story, I guess. Does pretty well against things like Ninetales, opposing fires. It's all good. Yeah, beats all the grasses. So yeah, some pretty cool stuff generally in the. I feel like it's probably better just to pick out some of the more interesting things that I thought were pretty. If you do the Sims, that you think, oh, that might be a bit surprising, or what's happening there. So one of the first things is Galvantula. It says like in the ones that you should lose, but actually if you look at it, it actually requires Galvantula to it has to do the lunge. If it doesn't get the lunge, then it just loses. So there's quite a So I guess that kind of brings into question like mind games about like if you're facing a Galvantula and thinking like, well, they have to do lunge, then the other guys are going to maybe thinking, well, they know that I have to do lunge, so maybe I'll just go discharge. But I guess the thing there is that the Galvantula user cannot go straight discharge. They will just lose if they go straight discharge, so they're going to have to throw it somewhere. So that's
I'm kind of
quite
surprised it even wins then, because just because how glassy the Galvantula is.
Yeah, so I found it. I thought it would be just one. I thought it was quite interesting because I thought it would just be a really straightforward match that just it would just burn up and be disappearing. But so I was like, oh, that was quite surprising. But yeah, there's that bit of intricacy there. There's some shenanigans that can go on with metal, depending on how popular that is, which is also a case about. It's an IV dependent matchup, particularly in the twos, because there's actually there's a break point with Talonflame's attack where you can get 1 extra Incinerate damage, which makes that matchup flip in Talonflame's favour much more significantly. So there's actually an argument to say you don't want the rank 1. The rank 1 actually seems to lose a few matchups that way, so you might want to go a bit lower. Probably the one that I really enjoy the most is the Whiscash matchup, which is amazing in that it can just go like it beats it, and it can do it in the traditional way by thinking about doing Flame Charge and then like Brave Bird, just to, like wipe it off the face of the earth. But you can actually win that matchup just going straight Flame Charge, which is absurd. Just feels so wrong. Say again?
In the one.
In the ones,
if it doesn't land a blizzard.
Right,
okay.
Yeah, so you can just go. You can go. Just keep. I mean, you come out of it with like 5 HP, but you can do it.
Yeah.
So, so that's quite fun. Yeah, like I say, there's a few other kind of like specific matchups, like which look a bit horrible, like Violus, for example, is one which seems like you should lose quite horribly. But again, if you sneak an Incinerate in, that just changes it completely. Same with Mandibuzz, the big tank who likes to eat flyers for breakfast. Again, if you manage to sneak and Incinerate somewhere and play that out right, then you can beat Mandibuzz with that extra damage, and the extra energy. So yeah, I think it's got a lot going for it, personally.
Absolutely. I think what I really like about it is that I was looking at Charizard, like I spoke about Dusclops as like a mutual counter, or like a potentially decent mutual counter for Frostlass and Primeape. And I was looking at Charizard as that, and I couldn't find a Charizard set that beat, because Charizard's got tons of options. I think they couldn't beat them both consistently, and I think the best one ended up being something like Air Slash, because you're losing zeros to Frostlass regardless, and you need a flying fast move to do enough damage to Primeape, and so what I really like about Talonflame is that it's a much more reliable, like it's a serious upgrade on Charizard in terms of straight countering Frostlass and Primeape. And of course Charizard's got Blast Burn obviously, but if that wasn't hitting hard enough for you, like, do you want a Brave Bird, which is much more neutral coverage as well. So yeah,
absolutely. I think flying's got a lot to. It's got great neutral coverage anyway, but I think flying's really powerful in this cup for a myriad of reasons, and so having that, knowing that Talonflame has Brave Bird can be kind of like put your opponent on an edge, but also plus Incinerate, meaning you can get to it in I think maybe 4? Can't remember the
3. It's 50.
3?
Yeah, it'll be 3.
Yeah, 3.
Which is even worse in terms of like just okay, now there's 3 Incinerators gone, and now I could just get nuked off the face of the planet, right? So it's just always kind of like putting you on the back foot a little bit. And I'm just kind of like, if I came against them, thinking now, I've got to think about denying moves correctly. If I get that wrong, I'm in a lot of trouble. And if I get hit by that Brave Bird, then that's not going to be nice anyway. So it might make me change my play style a little bit and do something that I wouldn't normally do in a situation which I could potentially win. So there's that kind of that element to it as well. Plus it's a nice shiny new toy, which is always going to be fun to play with. So yeah, like I think I also like that. Okay, maybe the moveset's going to be predictable, but at least on every move that you're using, you're definitely getting stab as well, which is always great. Which is one of the things with Charizard, is that you're going to run a move which you're not going to get stab on, which could, that extra few damage could make a difference somewhere. I almost feel with Charizard, you can almost have like option paralysis. Almost is like, oh, you can always get to the end of a match and think, oh, if only I had that move. And it's like, but then if you had that move, then something else would go much worse. And it's kind of trying to do too much at once, maybe. And like you say, there's some matches which it just can't win, which Talonflame just has a lot more play with, or at least it's more consistent with, maybe. So I don't think it's as frail as well, which has a bit more bulk. It's not. I mean, it's still not Mandy level, but it can take more hits than perhaps Charizard can.
I think what you say about it being predictable in terms of moveset's an interesting point, because it's predictable, but at the end of the day, what are you going to do to you hit fine, Mandibles has got Brave Bird, but that doesn't make it any less painful when it hits you, does it? It's not like it's oh, I wasn't expecting the Shadow Sneak on Sableye or whatever. It's not like that, is it? It's a bit of a force. Aaron, you got any thoughts on Talonflame?
I think the coverage that it offers, I mean, Flame Charge, Brave Bird, I think only Lantern resists both. That's about it in the entire cup, because you're hitting Probo neutral, and it's got decent attack, bulk, and HP. It's like a more well-rounded Charizard, because Charizard's really soft, and it's got, I think, more defense, more HP, and a little less attack. So there's really not much that's going to want to tank more than one move. And even if like Zwillius, it's not going to want to take a Brave Bird because it's soft. There are so many like glass cannons in this that something that hits consistently hard is going to do really well. Like I'm assuming that its Lapras matchup is pretty decent as well, because Lapras doesn't charge that quick, and Flame Charge. If you get a Flame Charge and a Brave Bird, you probably win that if you outpace it.
And like the two shields, you win very, very easily, and then in the one shield, that's actually one of those ones where, again, if you sneak in an extra Incinerate, that flips it completely as well, because the Lapras just can't keep up with the pressure. So
if you use it as like a safe swap. Go into it. Lapras is their own, or like one of their only counters. You're going to be at least halfway through an Incinerate before they've switched, and then you might sneak that extra one in, or you might get to 4 before they get to their move. And then they're in a lot of trouble there straight away.
Absolutely, that's what I've been thinking. Like maybe this is a meta where you can use it as a safe swapper, because a lot of people probably won't realise to begin with that just how much of a difference that one Incinerate ahead can get, and that again, it just makes such a massive difference. And you can cause problems for things that might be considered maybe slightly more niche picks, like maybe Credilli, for example. Like you put a lot of pressure on the Credilli player to play that matchup correctly, because you can actually win that even if Talonflame gets an Incinerate ahead, then Credilli can still win it, but it has to go straight Stone Edge, weirdly. If it tries to bait, it ends up like not giving itself enough time to get the energy back. In this really weird, this is really weird situation where I was trying to play it in many different ways, but there's this weird kind of combination of energy, which then means that it can only get to a Grass Knot before you hit the next charge move.
Right. Okay. I see what you mean.
I think that might be. I think that might be an issue with the Sims, because Grass Knot is 5 cheaper. So it's definitely getting to a Stone Edge.
I think it's probably in terms of when you throw the move, I imagine.
Yeah, it will be. With Incinerate users, it is really vital. Like sometimes it's better to like let them throw maybe 3 charge moves and then throw, because they get like 1 less Incinerate. It is playing against them is a nightmare. Like just to count everything and make sure you throw in at the perfect time.
This is it. Yeah, and I mean, like I say, even like with that Credilli matchup being weird, like and maybe if it is a sim thing, but if you look at that and you're trying to figure out what on earth's going on, and then you see that in a real match, like, hang on, I remember seeing this, and this is now what happens, right? And that just has that confusion aspect. So yeah, like I was looking at it, I was like, that's just bizarre kind of thing. So I was trying to figure it out as well. And I'm like, that shouldn't work, but I was looking at it, definitely have a look at it yourself. But again, if I came across that in a match and I was running Credilli, I was like, I'm not really sure what to do now, kind of thing. I feel like I should definitely win this. But then that kind of split second way of thinking, hang on a minute, maybe I should do something differently, can be enough just to get another bit of energy away or something. I think the only other thing I'd probably say about it is it puts a lot of pressure on some some of the perhaps some of the other bigger picks, things like maybe everyone's probably going to have a Jellicent now that its Frilich is out in the wild. And interestingly, like the only way that Jellicent can reliably beat it, it seems, is like if it has to have Bubble Beam on its moveset. Like if it doesn't have Bubble Beam, then it just struggles completely. Like it just can't keep up damage wise, which I thought was quite fun as well, because I've seen a lot of Jellicent crop up in GBL. I'm kind of getting a bit sick of it now, even though I used to use it myself. I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm probably going to mess around with it a little bit after Saturday just to kind of get a feel for it. But I think it's something that could surprise a lot of people early on, just kind of like how much momentum it can gain just off the the damage and the energy it can gain very, very quickly.
Yeah, James, I saw you pulling some funny faces there when at some sims. Was there anything you wanted to jump in on?
Yeah, I was like, my first thought was like, how does it do against Credilli? I think my two concerns with it were my main concern is that you're probably going to be running something else that's weak to rock, or like there's a temptation there. A lot of the big meta picks are weak to rock, and I think rock is maybe a sneaky type that's going to become more important as the month goes on. Like one of our Mr. Tenacity does some early meta analysis, and Crustl's doing really well in the early meta, like, because I think of SmackDown and loads of people are running like Frostlass, a Flyer, a couple of other things that are neutral to rock, like but yeah, the difference between Charizard and Talonflame is ridiculous in the PvP Poke rankings. It's got like Charizard is like 200 versus Credilli, and Talonflame is like 600. So Talonflame like comfortably winning, and Charizard comfortably losing. So I don't know whether, like you say, maybe the kind of difference between a 3 and a 5 turn fast move is doing something weird there. So yeah, like you say, you're putting the pressure on the Credilli player to do it, to play exactly how they have to play. And yeah, and my other concern is just Incinerate. It's a pain in the arse to play with. I've got a rank 1 Ultra League shiny Typhlosion, and I love it. And I tried playing with Incinerate a bit, and it's hard work.
Yeah, your mental maths is going to be on point, isn't it? Like
yeah.
Cool. Do you want to move on to your pick, James?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Matt asked me a while ago. I gave him 2 options, and he and I'm gonna go for a bit of a spicy number as well. It's Pokedex number 589, the Cavalry Pokemon Escavalier, otherwise known as the Undresser of Shelmets, due to its weird evolutionary pathway. And it's one of several exciting bug entries from Gen 5. I've already spoken about one, Crustle. I think that's Gen 5, isn't it? So it's like one of the few remaining pseudo fighters. And like, as we all know, pseudo fighters are kind of generally pretty good in Silph, because they kind of fall in the middle ground between they do what you want from a fighter, but they don't have all the weaknesses. And I think that's kind of it's exactly what Escavalier is doing here. So like in the one shield, it kind of beats the things you expect it to beat, beats the ice types, beats the rock types, beats Lucario, beats Zweilous. Zweilous is obviously the big one. But then on top of that, in the one shield, it beats Frostlass, Whiscash, Hypno, Mew, Gallade, Lantern, Melmetal. Like, I think a lot of them depend on landing a Megahorn, which is an issue within it itself. Obviously, like Lantern doesn't. But some of those definitely I would have thought it would really struggle with. But I think it's this kind of like fact that it's resisting or it's neutral to a lot of things that generally your counter users aren't. And another interesting, well, there's the first thing I'd say is that it's got a 500 rating with Diggersby and Quagsire, which basically means like if it gets a couple of counters, then it beats them both. And so moving on from that, if you give it a couple of counters energy, it goes from around a 70% to around an 80% win rate on the meta. And on the restricted meta, it goes from 15 wins and 17 losses and a draw to 20 wins and 13 losses. So it picks up Toxie, which I think is quite interesting. What else does it pick up? I did write these down somewhere. Meganium becomes more. Meganium's like bait dependent on both sides, so Meganium becomes like a comfortable win with a couple of counters. Dragonair, I'll come to that in a minute. But Dragonair becomes a comfortable win. Gyarados, interestingly, only with Dragon Breath, but like, yeah.
How's he beating Gyarados? What?
Because Mega Horn's totally OP, I think. Like
counter plus Mega Horn, and Gyarados is soft.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And then it also comes really close on Galvantula, and I suspect that if the Galvantula throws a lunge and you don't shield, you probably comfortably win that. I haven't run the exact sim on that, but it goes from like 300 to like 487, so it's like super duper close. Although you're probably more likely to have I don't know. I was gonna say probably more likely to have a good stats Galvantula. I certainly don't have a good stats Escavalier. It's one of those you have to trade, don't you, to get, or it costs 200 candies. But
I did the 200 candies.
I may have done that as
well. I'll just briefly talk about dragons. So my initial thoughts of this Cavalier was like, it's a steel type, it's going to resist the dragons, and like, yeah, it comfortably beats Xylus. Like it completely walls Xylus. Like it's got absolutely nothing it can do really. Like yeah, it can throw Dark Pulse, but everything else is resisted. Dragonite, it can only beat it with Aerial Ace, and even then, like it's really, really close with it's stats dependent with the normal Dragonite. And Dragonair, yeah, you need, as a switch, it beats Dragonair comfortably, but like heads up, it doesn't. So I think like it's a move timing kind of thing. I think that like Dragonair beats it to the Water Pulse or something before it gets to the Drill Run.
I must admit that the Dragonite matchup is like the only thing that's putting me off Escavalier, to be completely honest.
Yeah, but like I say, like 2 counters and it comfortably wins. It goes like it goes to a comfortable win. Right. So I'm thinking of it as a switch more so than like a lead Pokemon in general. Like I say, I don't like. I feel like it is kind of the perfect pseudo fighter because I don't think it's necessarily there to like win you all the matches in the world. It's like it's there to be a thorn in your side. It's there to like take a shield. Like it's got 2 really hard hitting moves, and it's like I feel like this meta is very much like forming around a subset of Pokemon. Like everyone, like lots of people are running Primate, lots of people are running Mandibuzz and Xylus. And I feel like it's kind of one of those annoying Pokemon that beats loads of random things, or like because it's got that bug type in its beating. The matches that you think it's going to lose, it actually does okay in because it's neutral to fighting and ground. So Whiscash, the fighters, they're all like matches. They're all the ones that like flip with a couple of counters difference. Like so I feel like it's kind of like an awkward to deal with Pokemon, that if your opponent doesn't bring a fire type, or like you can find some way around that, you know, you can run two things that beat fire and have a Escavalier, it could be really annoying.
Yeah.
that's what I think its role is.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron, you got any thoughts?
I think it'll pair very well with Crustle. Obviously, it's probably going to lose to the fighters, but if they've not brought Primate or a fighter, then they're in trouble. I looked at the Frostlass matchup. It's fully IV dependent. Frostlass can go straight Shadow Ball if they've got high enough IVs.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that
I was
is
just
the one
surprised by
thing.
that. Like anyway.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't-
you're even getting close to it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, resisting the Powder Snows is huge. Like,
Yeah.
I think Powder Snow is like, what, 5 damage usually, and it's doing like 2 or 3 of it, depending on your defense stat. So, absolutely walling that is really nice. But Shadow Ball is obviously just so good.
I do
But if
feel
you
like
get energy up, then you're in a good position. Because Frostlass can't switch in on you.
Yeah.
Because you'll just get to 2 drill runs and then probably be able to counter down before they get off a Shadow Ball, even if they bait.
It's one of those typings that like Bug always confuses me, and I don't know if this is the same with you guys, but I always think it should be weaker to ice than it is. Like I feel like that's working in its favor. Like people are like, oh, it's steel type, so I'll throw in a fighter against it. In a way, it's not actually that. Like fighters aren't that great, and especially because you've kind of taken out the upper echelon of fighters as well. You've got this set of substandard counter users that are all like.
Well, I'll have words about that afterwards.
I mean, you know, realistically, in an open meta, are you ever going to pick Primate? No. Or Lucario. Lucario is like the king of like. So I've got to use Lucario because there's no other option.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting one, and I feel like similarly to Labyrinth, you could kind of come in here with like 6 spice picks and probably do quite well. And I feel like it's one of those where you could just confuse your opponent into losing.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Jan?
No, I was going to say, I've always been a big fan of Escav. Like, for even using it, I used it for a little bit in, admittedly in Ultra League, but you can kind of see what it does, and it does its particular role very well, which is what I've always liked. I mean, I'm a big fan of it just because of the move selection that you can have with it as well. Like, it's got a great stat distribution for the counter side of things, and that's just like OP as it is. But like, you can run Mega Horn, Drill Run, and cause like headaches for a lot of people, or run Aerial Ace and give yourself slightly different coverage and give yourself like more things to worry about, or even do Aerial Ace Drill Run to kind of get to those moves a bit quicker rather than having the big nuke. Or if you really want to go mad, you could use Acid Spray, I guess. I mean,
yeah, that would be pretty mad.
I
do think there's an argument for Aerial Ace, but maybe, yeah.
Acid Spray, I imagine, will help versus the dragons.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, most likely.
not Dragonite.
No,
but like, yeah.
It would make those counters feel even worse from these now substandard counter users as well. Like, it's like, oh, this now feels like I'm a champ or something like that. That would be. You probably only get away with it once, though, I guess, maybe. But
the one other than Dragonite, which I think is manageable because like, that's just Dragonite. Like, it's there to just obliterate certain things and not be able to do anything to other things. I think the Mandy matchup is more concerning, but. If you land a Mega Horn, you can still do a really big chunk. So, like, and if you compare it to Mandibuzz versus most of the fighters, it's actually not that bad a matchup. Like, if that's what Escavalier's there to do, then you've got outs. You're not going to win that. It's not a good match. Like, even with an energy advantage, you probably still need to give up an extra shield to win that match. But you can probably do a fair old chunk. And I think that's all you can ask for from Mandy sometimes.
I'm assuming it's quite close in the 2s. Because counter will add up being neutral.
Yeah.
Like you'll have to, if you probably have to double bait or land the Mega Horn early on, and that'll leave it like IV bait. Yeah, it'll do what, like less than 10 damage probably.
Yeah.
So if you run Aerial Ace, then you can win the 2s.
But do you want to run
Aerial Ace? Really gagging to beat Mandy and Dragonite, then run Aerial Ace.
It's real run Mega Horn, innit? Come on.
Yeah.
Aerial Ace Mega Horn.
Aerial Ace Mega Horn would be, I don't know, just thrown out. It's probably about the spiciest you can go without running Acid Spray, put it that way.
That's true. That's true.
True.
Ooh, yeah, in the 2s, if you run Drill Run Mega Horn, you leave Mandy, a rank 1 Mandy with 5 HP. If you land the Mega Horn, that is like, and no one's got a rank 1 Mandy, like, that we know.
No.
That's true. That is true.
I got it. It must be impossible to get because it's not in the wild, so yeah.
Trading. If you do like level, no friendship trading, you can get, I think, which is like, 1 trade?
Yeah, no one's.
It's next to non-existent.
It's not happening. It's not.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it will beat it in the 2s if you land the Mega Horn.
Yeah.
Mm. That's what I mean. Compared
really
to like
nice.
Primeape, it's pretty solid. Like comparing the 2 alongside each other, it's not bad.
It'll be one of those matchups as well. I think there'll be a lot of people who'll think, "Oh, Mandy's a flyer who can just take hits. Escab's there. I'm just going to come out of this laughing," and then it gets to the end of it, it's like, "Hang on a minute, now I've just got barely any HP left." Like, or in some circumstances could lose. That's going to put a lot of people on edge as well. And because I did a bit of practice the other day and almost got caught out by that particular scenario myself. So I was like, hang on, can't just swap this in willy-nilly anymore. So, I think could be definitely one of those sleeper picks maybe that could be grow in popularity towards maybe as we pick up as we go through, perhaps. But
good one for sure. Good.
After they watch this video.
Okay, my pick is another counter user. As well, it's I was speaking to someone who's a new player who is struggling to build a team in terms of having mons available that are good and having the rare candies to build things, and they asked me whether they should put 90 rare candies into a Primeape, and I said no. I said Toxicroak is always good. Like if Toxicroak is amazing. Throughout the we've been playing, well, certainly Aaron and James and I have been playing for Silph for 2 years now, and Toxicroak keeps coming up. It keeps popping up. It's good. And what I like about it here is that so James mentioned it earlier, that rock type is sort of sneaking in places now, particularly Provo Pass. And while there's quite a lot of Frostlass counters knocking about now, there's more sort of waters, more fires, more rocks. There's not much that takes on Probo Pass or a rock type in general, and Primeape. Now, with Toxie being the poison type, it resists counter. PvPoke says you're going to be losing the 0s and 1s. But there is a very, very well. The PvPoke sim doesn't hit a bulk point for counter versus Primeape, and to be fair, if the Primeape was a 15-0-0, you're not getting the bulk point anyway. But it's against a reasonable IV Primeape, like even if it's like mid-range, like rank 2000ish or whatever, that bulk point on Toxicroak is very guessable. And at that point, you win the 0s and you win the 2s. And of course, to win the 1s, as is the case with so many Primeape matchups, it has to land close combat, but you can get to a Mud Bomb first. So you're really in the driving seat there, really. It doesn't do quite so hot against Mandibuzz. One of Primeape's big things is that it can take on Mandibuzz a bit as well, winning if it lands close combat. realistically, I feel like Mandibuzz isn't going to shield the first move, so you could go for a Sludge Bomb, let it through. The Mandibuzz lets it through. If you then double shield with Toxicroak, take that big plunge, go 2 shields down. You'll kill the Mandibuzz. You'll have over half health left, and you're coming out with 91 energy, I think it was, or like you're coming out with very close to 2 Sludge Bombs. So the likelihood is you're going to get at least one of those shields back, possibly 2, and still do a lot of counter damage because you've got a lot of health. There's definitely play there against Mandibuzz. Especially given that Mandibuzz is likely to be the switch in to Toxie. Like, you might not want to switch Mandibuzz into a Primeape, but I feel like you'd perhaps be more comfortable switching it into a Toxie. And so if you've just beaten their best counter tier, you're almost certainly getting your shields back. Because that sort of implies they have nothing better to take on Toxie, doesn't it? I guess. So there's play there. It's not ideal. It's ballsy going 2 shields down, but if you trust yourself to counter it down, there's play there. Another thing that Primeape has that is quite appealing is the Frostlass Swim. Toxie doesn't have, it's not as clear cut. You'd obviously rather be the Frostlass, but if you have a 1 counter lead, Toxie will beat Frostlass in the 2s straight Mud Bomb, which is quite nice. Yeah, and as I say, it does a nice job of breaking up that Primeape Probopass partnership. Now, it's nice, but it's weak to Mud Boys, which is a bit annoying as in terms of an extra weakness. But if you are concerned about that, the thing I actually wanted to talk about here tonight was Heracross, because Heracross is a monster. It is, again, with the bug type in, you are resisting counter. You've got close combats again, so you're still whipping out a load of damage. You can 1 shield versus the Primeape and straight counter it down. If the Primeape goes Night Slash and gets the bait, and you shield a Night Slash, it'll get to the next Night Slash, but you will come out with very little health, so you're unfarmable, and 91 energy. And that is 2 close combats. For reference, close combat does 41% to Mandibuzz, which is pretty incredible. This is a resisted move to Frostlass, 46.5% to Frostlass, and you've got 2 of them, so you're coming very close to knocking that out. And then what I think is really interesting is you've got the options of Megahorn and Earthquake. Primeape can hit Hypno with Night Slash and do 35% ish. Megahorn's going to do 84%, and if it's a Shadow Hypno, you're straight Oko-ing it from full. Like, no, it's not living that, which is wild. And then Earthquake, 75% to Frostlass in 1 big hit. It's just mad. Yeah, and you know, you're picking up Mud Boys there, Wishcash, Quagsire, Poliwrath, just straight close combat, just let a first move through. I think the worst thing they can do is a neutral not stab Blizzard from Wishcash, or a neutral non-stab Stone Edge from Quagsire, which does, I think if you take a Stone Edge from Quagsire, it leaves you at about 20% by the time you get 2 close combats off. So it's manageable. And yeah, I just think they're both. I mean, Heracross is regional exclusive, so there's perhaps not many. Certainly, maybe not many of my viewers will perhaps have one, but if you've got one, I think it's worth a practice with. Is that you do have? You got one, yeah?
And it's one of the things you seek out, isn't it? As a PvP.
Yeah.
Fair. I think they're both worth practice with. I think they're both excellent leads, because there's. I mean, with Toxicroak, you could drop Sludge Bomb, honestly, because fairy types aren't here. There's not many grass types. Just stick dynamic punch on there. Like, why not? Yeah, I think they both, and a lot of the. If we're talking about these as in terms of the reason personally, I think you'd run them would be to break up Primeape and Probopass. sort of partnerships. My mind's gone blank. I completely forgot what I was going to say. I completely forgot what I was going to say.
You don't need the sludge bomb.
Was I going to say?
Mind blowing.
Yeah. Honestly, I've used them both in practice, and I love them both. Honestly, I think they're both fantastic. But no, I can't exactly. It slipped my mind. But anyway, anyone got any thoughts on either of them?
Breaking up that primate Probopass core is huge. I mean, there are very few things that do it. Like, plus you're picking up Frostlass. If like the primate's they're both gonna keep Frostlass away. So you've got to have something else that's going to be able to take that on the road. Like, not much at all. You know, the dragons are going to be everywhere if they're running. So like those two, both of them beat almost all of the dragons in the ones, I think.
Yeah.
I think Kingdra, Dragonite is the only one that beats Primate, so the dragons are going to be gone. So you really need like something that can pick them up. And I really don't see much that can do both there. I mean, these two fighters that can do it.
Yeah.
Jellicent can do it, which is not going to be anywhere. It really isn't. Like, I know I'm talking about it in a minute, but no one's running it. Yeah. It's like 1% of people have used it in all matchups in the ranks so far.
Yeah.
And they're probably running the wrong moveset.
I've remembered what I was going to say. As primate counters go, like they all have serious flaws, really. Like Dragonite is cripplingly weak to ice. If you get hit with a caught up against Mandibuzz, it's probably game over. What else beats Primeape? You know, not a huge Pelipper. There's lots of Galvantulas running around. If you're building with Primeape anyway, it's not as long as you cover that little Frostlass matchup a little bit extra. You're not giving up a great deal in terms of team synergy by dropping Primeape out for these, as long as you're covering that little extra weakness against Frostlass. That's what I was going to say. I thought I'd sneak it in there before I forgot again. Yeah, Aaron's absolutely right. I think that there isn't a huge deal. Like there's not many ghosts here that. I mean, Frostlass takes Heracross on comfortably, but it's got to be a bit careful with Toxicroak. But the flying type we're seeing is Mandibuzz a lot of the time, isn't it? So all the counter users, as James was saying with Escavalier, even without stab on counter, is all the counter users are going to give Mandibuzz trouble. Like, yeah, they're both excellent.
How is Toxie against K9? I know that A9 beats it, but obviously that's slightly different stats, isn't it?
Yeah. I
was going to say, I'm running some sims tonight, and K9 seems to be able to outbulk everything. So I would suspect it probably outbulks Mandy. I don't understand that.
K9
doesn't make any
was
sense
to talk about, but it's like K9's ridiculous. But yeah.
Well, it
beats Primeape. It beats Primeape straight weather ball in the ones.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the twos or the zeros, but like, you know,
monster.
I think if I remember rightly, K9 wins zeros because of Side Shock. But if it goes for Side Shock and it gets shielded, Croak is then picking up.
You
ones.
outpace it.
I think that was right.
But
it's interesting to bring up
risk.
K9 because no, I don't think so. Because in terms of covering that little extra bit of coverage against things like Mandibuzz, against Frostlass, even Galvantula, K9 seems like a really good partner for these things, particularly Heracross because of the Mudboy coverage, which K9's going to struggle with. Like there's a Primeape is outside of the rock types, and this sort of steels and ice, which are going to be anti-dragons, but you might not see. I think it's unlikely you'll see a steel and an ice on the same team, or certainly a Frostlass and a steel on the same. Certainly a non-Frostlass ice with a steel, I think is going to be uncommon. I don't necessarily feel like Primeape as a counter user. I don't feel it's not counter that's making Primeape so good. It's the speed and the coverage and the power.
Yeah.
And you can potentially substitute that in with something else, because you're not getting the speed and the raw power quite so much with Heracross and Toxicroak, but something like Ninetales or Galvantula filling that sort of Primeape role. There's other ways around it, perhaps. Yeah, I mean it's a tough argument. I'm trying to convince people not to use Primeape here. But yeah,
I feel like I'm trying to convince myself not to use Primeape, but every time I always look at it and go, that would be great, but I can't figure out anything to put it with. Like, I always seem weak to something because it's there. Because obviously everybody knows it's going to be there. It's like the second most used Pokemon in this cup so far. So everyone's running counters. Like, K9 is everywhere. Galvantula is everywhere. Mandate is like bait dependent. So, like, it's just going to move further and further out of the meta, hopefully, as it goes on. So running like 3 counters to it, should get you through.
Yeah, it's weird. Primeape's kind of taking the role that Toxic often takes, which is like that counter user that you begrudge to take, but it's a pain in the arse. Like, Toxic's often just a pain in the arse, and like it's not quite strong enough to like, it beats like 4 things on your opponent's team, but it can only beat 1 of them. I kind of, there are certain things about this cup that are making me annoyed. Like the Mandy mirror match is painful. But I love Mandy. I absolutely love Mandy. I've been running it in GBL a lot, and it's my new fave. But yeah, just having to sit through that like slow grind, like it's like it is ferocious. Umbreon mirror match again.
Yeah, it is. What do you reckon?
It's even slower.
Yeah. At least last resort like hits for a decent amount.
Yeah, I kind of like a similar situation, like trying to figure out ways to bring something that isn't Primeape, but I always find myself just thinking Primeape just does what I need it to do very, very well. Yeah. And even when it has like these bad matchups, it seems to come out of it in good situations, or like it wins things when it shouldn't, or it just is just so annoying, and everyone's got it, and you kind of have to plan around it, and you think, I'd like another option at least that could kind of like slot in the same way, but it just has such a weird niche. But I'm also a fan of trying to like work spicier things in, so I'd love to try Heracross, but again, regional being a bit of a problem. But I guess my one, like, if you do have access to a Heracross, you mentioned about potentially running Earthquake, which I think would catch a lot of people off guard, because I think most people would expect like the double stab moveset. But then
most people probably don't even know that he has it.
No, absolutely, yeah. So I think there's a lot of value there. Like you say, you can grab the Frostlass, but is there anything else that it's necessarily going to hit that it doesn't cover with Mega Horn and Counter, just considering how strong it is?
No, I think Mega Horn's the way, isn't it? I think Mega Horn's the way.
So like that Frostlass matchup would be amazing with the Earthquake, but if you know that you're going to have to bulk, if you're not running Primeape, you're running Heracross, and then you're going to have to patch that up elsewhere, do you really want to try and patch it up with Heracross's moveset, or just kind of nuke someone with the Mega Horn?
Yeah, that's it. It's Mega Horn, I think, really, absolutely. Although, what I will say is, going back to Jellicent again, actually, I was last month I was using a Jellicent and someone switched. I switched my Jellicent in on a Heracross, and they landed an Earthquake on me. I was thinking, what's it going to do here? Did Earthquake, did about 70% or whatever. Then they shielded or double shielded or whatever, counted me down, and then they come out with the 2 close combats, and then you're in a world of trouble. Like, it's Earthquake has that. Thing is, and this is in theory, you're gonna click Mega Horn more often than you're gonna click Earthquake. But the times when you're gonna click Earthquake are probably more likely to flip bad situations into good ones if you really go for it. So I guess it depends. I guess thing is, it's Hypno's the big one, isn't it? Like, you want to be able to get that shield back. Like, if you've used a shield to farm something down, which you might not necessarily have done. Like, if you've lined it up versus a Probo Pass, for example, you're not using any shields there, and then you can get you've not got a shield down, so it's not as important that you get a shield back. In which case, that's fine, I guess. Yeah, I might have talked myself into Earthquake.
Well, yeah, I think talking about that Jellicent matchup, it just reminds me of the few times, like, and maybe not the same kind of direct comparison, but like when I've had the back in Labyrinth having Politoed versus Jellicent, and then landing that Earthquake, just like before they know you've got Earthquake, because there were a few people running around throwing blizzards, and it's like, and that had flipped quite a lot of matches for me just because they let it go through and actually did more than they necessarily expected and kind of get away with throwing.
I think it's about half, isn't it? It's like with a good one, it's like 40, but with like the ones that are running around now, it's like about half, and then they've got to shield the next unless they're carrying Bubble Beam. But it's a tough one.
Well, unless anyone's got anything further to say on any of the counter users, James, I feel like I cut you off mid.
I think the counter, as is always the case, the counter users have all got these glaring issues. When you're in a meta where you've taken Medicham out of it, then you're kind of left with what's behind both Heracross and Toxie have a double weakness. I flip flop with close combat as a move. It makes you really predictable, and at least with Primate you've got that kind of like, well, it could just be a cross chop, or it could just be a Night Slash. Like, you've got that bit of, with Heracross, like, you can count the moves and you can be like, exactly where that Heracross is. That's always my concern with Heracross. But I mean, like you say, Toxie is always a danger. There's just maybe a few too many things that kind of own it in this meta. A lot of flyers, which is a kind of concern with it. Like,
yeah. So I'm just really glad that not a single part of me for a single second this month has not a single part of me has thought, oh, Blaziken's a good idea, and that's normally the first thing, the first thing I do. So I think that shows huge personal growth on my part.
Proud of you, man.
The thing is, you bring that up, and I looked at it today. It was like I've got a list of like 20 odd things that have been cycling in and out of the 6 that I'm looking at, and it was in there because it picks up Mandy if you run Stone Edge, and you can go straight Blaze Kick in the 2s. So I was like, is it worth it?
Beats K9 as well if you're in Blaze Kick Blastburn.
Yeah.
So
just a better fire type.
Stop! Don't set him down that path.
Yeah,
again.
come on, guys. Yeah, I feel like I told you that. I felt like I was safe telling people that. But go on. We've talked a bit about Jellicent tonight, just in passing. But
it'll put you off Blaziken, but this is why it's here. It's just keeping you away from Blaziken.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's not gonna.
It's not gonna do anything.
Brave bird.
Just run Talonflame.
Just run yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. Just run Talonflame. Go on, Aaron. Tell us about Jellicent.
So Pokédex number 593, and it's so low ranked, like 150, but they've got the wrong moveset on it. I'm looking at Hex, Bubble Beam, and then you can choose your nuke. I've gone Shadow Ball for most of the stuff I'm looking at, but obviously Ice Beam gives you a major threat to the dragons. But no, I've got some notes on it, and it beats every dragon in even shields, like the zeros you have to Bubble Beam and then probably Shadow Ball, but other than Zweilous, which beats you in all shields, and Shadow Dragonite beats you in the 2s, and that's it. You beat every water other than Lantern, Bee-Barrel, and Sharpedo in even shields. And versus the grasses, there are only like, 2, 3 knocking about. Credilli and Venusaur, if you land the Shadow Ball, both, they're going to have to, if you burn a shield, they're going to have to shield back, because Shadow Ball leaves them so low. Credilli in the 2 is bait dependent, which is insane, because, I know Bubble Beam and obviously Hex Bubble Beam, you're charging so fast, and that bait is so cheap. You beat all the fires other than ones that are just not getting used, like Typhlosion, Howdoom, Litleo, and Arcanine are nowhere. Wall all the ices, like Frostlass, you can go straight Bubble Beam in the 2s and farm it down. You can tank a Shadow Ball after 1 Bubble Beam. So, if they shield that, it's just game over for them. The rock types, only Shadow Probopass properly beats you. I mean, Credilli's there, but it's more of a grass. And Agrav in the 2s and 0s. In the 1s, it's IVs. And then the electrics, you pick up Magneton, Stunfisk, and if Galv gets baited and doesn't lunge you back, you KO it before it gets off a discharge. So it's even in all shields, just because of how fast you charge in with Hex. So if they go straight discharge, you've won, straight away. Out of there have been I looked at the usage stats, and 60 Pokemon have been used so far in ranks, and you beat 40 of them in even shields, and 5 of them are IV based, 5 of the losses. So you're looking at 45 out of the 60 common Pokemon that have been used. You're either completely even with or absolutely annihilating. Primeape, you can just, I'm pretty sure after a Bubble Beam you can tank 2 Night Slashes, but you don't really want to be doing, so you can obviously burn a shield there, but it really is, it's a really big sleeper pick from the looks of it. Especially with a lot of teams carrying a Dragon, Primeape, Frostlass, a Fire, Ninetales, and that's 4 right there. So they're going to have to bring at least one of their other 2, and you can just work it from there. It really does look brilliant for this cup. But I say that, but Bubble Beam knocks so many sims way out of proportion. If they catch that Bubble Beam, you're probably going to be in a bit of trouble, but you can just throw a Shadow Ball instead, and then, with Mandy knocking about, Ice Beam really does seem interesting, but you still lose if you're running Hex. So if you were going Ice Beam, I'd go Bubble, Ice Beam, Bubble Beam, but then you're getting walled by the waters, and that's not where you want to be.
That's true. Yeah, I was running in Labyrinth. I was Bubble, Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, but I mean, it sounds to me, based on what you're saying, that a lot of its play comes from having so many options, and obviously you're not getting those if you drop Bubble Beam. I guess it makes a great 6th pick in that regard then, because of the options you've got on your moveset, you can tailor it to beat the things that you need to beat and that you're looking a bit weak to.
Yeah. I mean, with Bubble, I'm not convinced by it for this one. Last month I ran Bubble, Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball, because I was there's not much that my team needed ice coverage wise, and this month there's not much that I need water coverage wise. So the Hex it gives it that charging power to outpace literally. You annihilate Frostlass with Bubble Beam.
Yeah. I'm
pretty sure you can beat Frostlass down a shield if you get the first Bubble Beam bait.
Bloody hell. Yeah, that makes sense.
Really, yeah. Because obviously you outcharge it just because of the hexes, the way the hexes work. But then even if they bait Avalanche, you Bubble Beam, you're gonna live the next Shadow Ball and beat it to the next 2.
Yeah.
So they're not. I think the zeros. I think you win the 0-1s. It wins a lot of 0-1s, which is interesting. But that's obviously you've got to get that bait. But if you're in that situation at the end, you're down a shield, you're going to your jelly, they come in with something you can beat, they're gonna have to shield. There's no way they want to take a Shadow Ball. So you get in that bait, you live in their next move, and then you just nuke them. I really, really like it. I loved it last month. It was one of my favourite picks.
Yeah. It was my MVP as well. I think it's yeah, you know what? When I was looking at Dusclops, I looked at Jellicent, and I think perhaps because I looked at Bubble, not Hex, perhaps that's why I didn't quite stumble across it.
Yeah, it really impressed me. Like I was
I'm
like,
kind of shocked that it's that low. It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's because there's not got no bubble beam on it, and that just
even
you
still,
can't go
that doesn't-
straight.
Yeah, even still though, like it's such a tank, like, and it's a tank that can actually like cause a bit of damage as well. It kind of it's somewhere in that Azumarill kind of tanky / also a bit of damage club, and I love it. I use it a lot in GBL, but yeah, okay, they're like 2 big meta mons are both dark types, but it's got Ice Beam, like, and and like looking at the Sims, it's another one where it's like you give it a couple hexes and it's just like its win rate goes up by an enormous amount.
Yeah.
So
or if it gets a shield, if you get it in a shield advantage, like you're almost guaranteed to win switchback unless they're walling you, which not much does. Like there's very little that walls both water and ghost. Like defensively as a type in, water gives it all the resistances and ghost has very little weaknesses. I mean you've got dark and ghost. That's it, right?
Yeah. And
you're picking up the bug resistance with the ghost type in. And I mean it's so tanky. Like there's nothing, I'm pretty sure there's next to nothing that's not like a 70 damage, like 70 energy move that can one shot it. Like Frenzy Plant, don't think KOs from full health.
No.
Discharge from a Galvantula. Galvantula's like, yeah, it can, if you need to tank it, like if you've got the energy, but like there's not much that can one shot it because it's so tanky.
Oh, even lives a Shadow Venusaur Frenzy Plant from full health. Lives with 3 HP. Which
I was going to say, I'm sure I've seen that one and it wasn't nice. I was like, I wonder how much
that'll be IVs,
does.
Absolutely ridiculous.
So I was excited. I was excited about Jellicent for a very long time. Do you remember? I think you were there, Aaron, when we did the Leeds Dock tournament, and we did an Open Great League back to back with I forget what cup it was. It was maybe the one before Rose, or was it? Might even have been Timeless or before that. I don't know. But either way, that was like it was like late 2019, and Gen 5 was starting to drop or whatever. And I was excited about it back then because it was just after Registeel had dropped, and after Registeel or Lock-On got boosted. And it was before Stunfisk. Registeel was like the dog's bollocks, wasn't it? And I was just like, Jellicent's going to come one day. Jellicent's going to, it's going to change things overnight. Now we've had so much between Registeel being boosted and Jellicent that it feels like the impact has been perhaps gone under the radar a little bit.
Like I've not seen many. I mean, obviously it's still so new. Like it's been out in the wild 5 days now.
Yeah. And
before that, it had to be from GBL. Like I got the one I ran last month is a lucky one.
Yeah,
I got it. I genuinely just traded like every single one I had and got as many in as I could, and none of them were good. And I got a lucky one, and I was like, this is good in Ultra League later on, which is going to be expensive anyway, and I'm not going to build it yet. But I'll build it up, get the move, and it worked fine. Yeah. Like I don't think there's much that it needs the IVs for.
No.
I do remember that there was one matchup. I think like you can get it up to like 8 hex damage versus Frostlass, which makes you can farm. I think you do 2 bubble beams and farm, like in the 2s. I think it is. I can't remember it exactly, but it's really interesting. Like there's not much that really wants to stick around against it.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it can take on the most common electric types, like Galv, Stunfisk, Alolan Graveler. I don't think there's anything else knocking about. Like if someone wants to run Magneton, but that's soft.
Yeah.
And then grass is nowhere. It's like the perfect like little meta for it. Like they've taken away all the big picks. Grass and electric aren't around. Dark is around, but you can just run 3 dark, 4 dark counters.
Yeah,
and
plenty of dark
they're
counters.
just not going to want to bring it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like, Zwellius and Mandibuzz both have to be careful around Primate. So if you run it with a Primate, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything that really threatens you, like Shadow Dragonite.
Yeah.
Like Probopass is like, it's like an electric type, but it's obviously not got the typing. And the only way Probopass beats you is if it's the Shadow. You beat the normal one.
I think what we've argued tonight is a really good argument for Dragonite.
Do you know what? I was just thinking the same. And do you know,
I am very much considering, but I am very much in the Shadow Dragonite fan club. But like, so many times have been like, except for Dragonite.
Yeah.
The same.
If I had a Shadow one, I would be definitely running it. But I've got a normal one, and I'm only just like, do I run it? Don't I run it? It looks good, but it's also not around for long.
See, you say that I'm a big fan of Shadow Dragonite. Ran it in the first one this season. I've been using it in practice, and I've talked myself out of it. I just don't think it quite fits, because I mean I saw it as like a good Primate counter. But it struggles in ones, especially and it's not even like Primate has to get to a close combat for that to struggle. It can struggle in one night slashes, and it's difficult to run double dragon. And like I don't really want to run Dragonite as a dragon. I want to run it as a Primate counter. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's good, but
it's not great. It's not a wall for it, is it?
No.
It's really not a wall. Like, the Primate hits hard, and Dragonite is arguably one of the softest things in this cup.
Yeah.
If they get the boost, I reckon you're in trouble.
Oh, yeah. What were you going to say, Jan?
Like,
I was going to say I'm a massive fan of Shadow Dragonite, but it just in Great League, it just doesn't have the necessary bulk. Like it barely has enough in Ultra League, and I think that it really does shine in Ultra. But it just feels like paper. Like I'd love to run it myself, but it just doesn't stick around long enough to do the job.
It's so hard.
It is amazing.
You have it on the Switch. You either get a shield, or you
Or you lose the game there and then to Frostlass.
You lose heart twice. But like, it's got a place. I don't know. I kind of want to run Mandibuzz, so that means I'm probably not going to run Zwilus, but I still want to run a Dragon. I'm not going to run Dragonair. Dragon is boring. It's not exciting. Doesn't spark joy. Shadow Dragonite sparks joy.
And on that note,
there's no fairies.
Go on, Jan. Quick one.
It feels like all those things that if you can, in the right hands and piloted correctly, I think it will be devastating. But I think the average player will not be able to do that. Even taking like Silph differences into account, I think it's just going to be too tough for most people, and it's just going to be like playing 2 against 3. So bring it in.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining, guys. I think we might have set a new record for longest chatting shit here. So cracking job. Thanks for coming on, and catch you all later. Good luck with the month.
Cheers, Dave.
Thanks. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.